Hello everybody, it's Ezra time again and welcome back to another reaction video, and today I'm gonna be reacting to Game Theory FNAF, The Grave Robber, Five Nights at Freddy's by, well, the Game Theory, MatPat himself. So it's been a while I think since I react to a Game Theory video, and frankly I don't think there is another, well, there is another new FNAF game actually coming in 2020, but I don't exactly know. I don't know what to expect. I think it was made by Stillwell again, which is a company that made FNAF VR Help Wanted, which is a really good game. Again, I can't play it because I don't have a VR, I don't have a PlayStation, so yeah. And my recording setup is pretty shitty right now. um, but yeah, so Matt decided to upload another FNAF theory, obviously. And honestly, I gotta be honest with you guys. I don't think Matt is gonna be uploading another like a final theory because that's not gonna happen. Like we all know that's not gonna happen because every single time MatPat uploads something, Scott always decided to like, oh, here's the new game, oh, here's a new picture, a new clue, a new story. It never's gonna end, and everybody just using that as a joke, like, oh, MatPat just cries in the corner because the FNAF lore is just keep going and going and going and going, and basically just very complicated in a way. Um, but yeah, so today is called the Grave Robber. I don't know what it is. I don't know which theory that he does. Maybe he does a theory on the book, maybe, because I think that's the only lore that actually going on. And we know that the book is now connected to the game, so we just have to wait and see. And I'm really excited to see the 2020 FNAF game. I think it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna like look like Stranger Things in a way. So yeah, really excited for it. So without further ado, let's just start the video, shall we?
Game series.
Book series.
Help wanted.
New book series.
Oh, come on. Fine.
Yeah,
Phone guy.
This is what I'm talking about.
Purple guy.
Not
Orange
gonna
dude.
stop.
Didn't you just... Fine. Wild card. Change the category.
Oh.
Timeline.
Bite of 87.
Chomp of 83.
Party of 85.
Wait, but...
Time traveling
Party
ball
of
pit.
85.
You can't just...
Reverse.
Oh, yeah? Reverse.
Reverse.
Reverse. Reverse.
Reverse,
Reverse. Reverse. Reverse.
Reverse. Reverse the whole damn thing. Game
Hello,
theory.
Internet! Welcome to Game Theory! Another day, another installment in the FNAF multimedia conglomerate. So, at
Yeah.
this point, some people in the FNAF community really hate my guts. Like, ring me through a meat grinder and feed me to a rabid dog animatronic levels of hate. Like, for instance, this comment, and I'll read it exactly as written to stay true to his authorial intent. Quote, as a hard-care FNAF fan, he's a embracement to FNAF tourists. He insists on using the box to proof his stupid theories, and they don't even make sense.
Oh.
He sooks and thinks he's smart, but he's not. I wish he would stoop. He then goes on to rant for a paragraph about how unrealistic time travel is in a franchise about
my
robot
God,
rabbits
really?
haunted by ghost metal, but I think
Yeah.
you get the point. And
Do you
though
think that's
I use
realistic?
this one
Oh,
really
dumbass.
over-the-top extreme comment as an example, seeing stuff like this is a bummer, because I don't know if you can tell, but I really do like this franchise, and I see my role
Yeah, I
in it
can
as a
see that,
person just
Matt. You don't
connecting
need to
ideas
tell
or
us.
presenting new threads to consider in a franchise that at this point is massive and really,
Yeah.
really confusing.
Really
but
massive
his
and
comment does bring up
confusing.
something that I should probably address at the top of this episode since it'll be relevant for today. My use of the, how did he put it? The box to proof my theories. Here's the thing, friends. I think this
box.
is something that both sides could use as a reminder, both my FNAF theory followers and my FNAF theory haters. There is a difference between canonicity and continuity, and I think a lot of the times in these sorts of discussions, they get confused with each other.
Get
Something
mixed,
being
yeah.
listed as canon just means that it's official. It is blessed by the person who is overseeing the rules of the universe. It is self-consistent within the boundaries of that fictional world. On the other hand, a continuity, at least as I'm referring to it here, is a timeline of events, a continuous story thread where one event leads to the next that leads to the next. Take Star
Yeah.
Wars as an example. Rey having magic healing powers in Rise of Skywalker, or Leia flying around like Mary Poppins in The Last Jedi, because they're
Which is
appearing
very
in
bad.
official works of the franchise, those powers thereby get the green light as being canonical powers of the Force in the overall Star Wars universe. The problems people have with them, though, is that they don't fit in cleanly with the continuity that was
Yeah,
previously
exactly.
established. If force healing
I
is
hate
in fact
the
a thing, then
Disney
why hasn't it
trilogy.
been used to save literally anyone before this point in the series?
Yeah,
Tell
exactly.
you what, it would have
Thank
been
you.
really handy for old Qui-Gon Jinn over there in episode 1, but the fact remains, healing is now a canonical force power, which means that the canonicity of certain powers is presenting challenges to the established continuity of events that came before. Now, this is where FNAF comes in. You see, you can have multiple continuities all existing under the same canon, and it appears as though this is how the FNAF franchise is working. The original novels and the original games exist in an alternate universe from one another. They are separate continuities, and yet they are all deemed canon.
Yeah,
this was all
exactly.
expressly stated by Scott years ago. Quote, "So yes, the book is canon, just as the games are. That doesn't mean that they are intended to fit together like two puzzle pieces. The book is a reimagining of the Five Nights at Freddy's story, and if you go into it with that mindset, I think you'll really enjoy it." End quote. Now, what I've been trying to do with my theories, and what I think some people on both sides misunderstand, is that I'm not trying to use the books to solve a continuity. I'm trying to use the books to establish a canon that will then allow us to solve a continuity. The books present us with themes, concepts, characters, and motivations in one continuity that can then inform our understanding of a separate continuity, or at the very least give us questions that we can ask of that continuity. Charlie, being a robot in the books, tells us that in the canon of the Five Nights world, passable humanoid robots can actually be a thing. So are there any characters in the games who this may or may not apply to? I don't know, but it's a question that we owe it to ourselves to ask because it's been established to be canon within this franchise.
I think there
Do we
is.
know what these little pins are on Baby's design here in the game? No idea. In fact, most people probably didn't even remember that they existed in the first place. But in the books, they play an important role. These are the things that allow Baby to transform into a human disguise. Now, is that necessarily what they're doing in the game? No, definitely not. Is the best and likely only clue for what they really are coming from a separate continuity? Yeah, in this case, yes it is. This isn't us trying to shove puzzle pieces together like Scott warned us against. It's about seeing that in one puzzle, there's a piece that fits in a certain location, and in a separate puzzle, you have a similar piece that might end up acting in a similar way.
yeah.
And here's the thing, you don't have to take my word on any of this anymore. Scott recently made a new post about all of this to clarify the situation. In response to the question of whether the lore of FNAF is solvable, he said this: "All I can do is say that some questions will be answered, even if it may not always be the answer you wanted. Be patient. Let me at least say this. Future games will look forward, but look to the novels to fill in some of the blanks to the past." So there you have it, from the creator himself. Does including the books in our discussions make things messy and complicated? Sure, but remember what franchise we're talking about here, friends. Messy and complicated
Yeah.
is like the formal first name that Five Nights at Freddy's never uses. Call it McFNAF. Messy, complicated Five Nights at Freddy's. The long and short of it is that when it
McFNAF.
comes to this franchise, we as theorists have always had to be discerning over what clues are helpful and which ones are just red herrings. This is no different now. Back when we only had the games, we did it with the number of Foxy Toes and Freddy buttons. Did a missing button
Oh,
mean it was a
yeah.
new animatronic?
Man,
Sometimes
the
yes,
old,
sometimes no.
you know,
Now
good
we just
times.
have to do it with time-traveling ball pits and sound illusion discs. And here's the last thing I'm gonna say on the issue, and hopefully it's the last time that I have to talk about it. At this point, where there's
I don't
soon to
think
be
so.
more books than there are games in this franchise, take a minute to wrap your head around that one. To dismiss the books entirely at this point is just short-sighted. And I'm not just saying that because we're referenced in the new book, Fetch. Yeah, seriously, we're in it. From page, well, I read it on digital, so it's like page 250 out of 3,127. Quote, "Greg did tune back in, though, when Kimberly Bergstrom raised her hand. Well, he sort of tuned back in. He heard her question, is this just a theory?" She probably didn't actually say it that way. That was just my creative interpretation of that
Just
line.
a
Look, Ma,
theory.
I'm an inside joke hidden inside the second installment of a multi-volume scholastic book series. Made it. Anyway, meta discussion over.
that's
Let's talk about
probably
this new book and what it means for the
a reference.
franchise, shall we? Fazbear
think,
Frights
maybe. I
number
don't
2
know.
Fetch was recently released, and it is, well, if I'm being honest, it feels much less connected to the series than the first one. Don't get me
Oh,
wrong, the
okay.
stories are still really good, if not even darker than the original 3. I mean, one has a young girl outright being mauled to death and wrapped in a sheet while she lays there dying, so pretty intense stuff. But the connections to the main lore are definitely a bit shakier this time around. I mean, the first book, Into the Pit, featured cameo performances by Golden Bonnie, Baby, Funtime Freddy, the Missing Children's Choir, and more. This one, meanwhile, introduces us to a lot of new things. A smartphone-powered animatronic dog named
Oh.
Fetch, tiny free-roaming versions of Freddy Fazbear called Lonely Freddies. We do get some
Lonely
quality
Freddies.
time with Plushtrap, but, you know, it's Plushtrap. It's like the D-stringer in the FNAF canon alongside the Bitty Babs and the Endoskeleton 2. Is that a hot take? Did I just offend the Plushtrap stands? I mean, the runt barely squeaked into Ultimate Custom Night as is. I'm just saying here, guys. Anyway, let's walk through these 3 new horror stories and what they mean for the franchise, shall we? Story number 1, Fetch. Greg and his 2 friends, Hattie Haiti? And Cyril live near Olympia, Washington. Greg feels compelled to explore an old abandoned Freddy's restaurant where he discovers Fetch, a fearsome animatronic dog with sharp teeth and an even sharper understanding of texting lingo. Quote, "How long has this place been empty?" Greg asked. "Fetch looks like he's older than my dad, but smartphones haven't been around that long." End quote. After getting scared out of the pizzeria, the dog goes on to fetch whatever Greg wants with increasingly disastrous results, killing a dog, ripping his uncle's finger off, and eventually retrieving his school crush in the worst way possible. It's actually a pretty simple story, but there are two big things to call out about it. First, it continues a theme that we're starting to see develop in these books. Kids are being drawn to these restaurants. It's never explained in the story, but Greg feels compelled to go to Freddy's by some unseen force. Quote from the book, "This might be what he'd felt in the field, what had called him here." And again, a bit later in that chapter, Greg was afraid he might not have gotten what he was there for, had he done what he was meant to do. End quote. Greg is now the second character to have some sort of psychic connection to these restaurants. As I talked about in our last theory, Oswald from Into the Pit had the exact same thing, where he inexplicably found himself drawing horrific animatronic monsters without ever knowing about Freddy's to begin with. It's also worth noting that both are the first stories in their respective books. It'll be interesting to see whether this trend holds in future installments. The second important part of the story, though, is that it clearly establishes Freddy's as a place where technology is advanced far beyond where the rest of society is. As I read in that earlier quote, Fetch can connect to smart devices like cell phones despite being older than the kid's parents. The reason I call this out is that in theory crafting for this franchise, I've seen a lot of theorists use the more modern, sleeker designs of the Funtime animatronics to put them later in timelines. But it seems like this story is telling us that those sorts of details don't matter. Freddy's is and will always be fantastically ahead of the curve when it comes to technology, especially technology for kidnapping small children. There was a bit more in that story about random event generators and plants/machines being able to read our minds and summoning stuff to you via mental focus, but I can't quite think of how it's important to any of the actual overarching narratives for the franchise, so maybe it's a discussion for a mini-theory at some point down the line, but for now, I'm just gonna skip it. Story number 2, we'll come back to in a minute, as that one has the most to discuss. Story number 3, out of stock. A new Plushtrap toy, the Plushtrap Chaser, a light-activated chomping green rabbit, is all the rage, selling out at stores across the nation. It also retails for $79.99, so Scott be making those fat stacks both IRL and in the book world for his killer merch. A boy named Oscar, fed up with never getting what he wants, shoplifts the last one that someone had supposedly returned for being defective. Quote, is it just me or do the teeth look wrong? Isaac pointed at the straight, slightly yellow, human-looking teeth that were visible through Plushtrap's partly opened mouth. And what's with the eyes? He reached out and poked one of the cloudy green eyes. Ew. He whipped his hand back and flicked his finger. It's squishy. End quote. After a few days of it doing nothing, the Plushtrap suddenly activates and terrorizes Oscar and his friends, chomping through the house's doors and garages just trying to bite them. Their only protection is that Plushtrap freezes in the light. Quote again, he was turning the box over and over in his hands, and there in bold letters was a critical detail. Walks in the dark, freezes in the light. End quote. A few hours and a comedic number of faulty flashlights later, the boys destroy the monster at last by luring it in front of an oncoming train. A few things to call out here in this story. First and most obviously, it explains Plushtrap's behavior in FNAF 4. He really is just a haunted toy that goes on a rampage and is stopped by the power of flashlights. So it's cool to make that lore connection with Plushtrap's original minigame. We also know, based on the story, that Plushtrap apparently has the ability to mimic voices. He has a speaker system built in under his fur and is able to mimic the voices of Oscar's mother and friends. Now, this is a really interesting detail because up until this point, the only voice mimics in the franchise have been the Funtime animatronics, with their built-in systems intended to lure children away from their parents so that they could be grabbed. This suggests the possibility that Plushtrap was either a prototype for those larger models, testing out the voice mimicry software, or was himself a Funtime-era animatronic. Whereas up until this point, all us theorists have classified him alongside the other nightmares from FNAF 4. But the last and most important thing to call out, though, is the fusion of human parts and animatronic parts. The story makes it very clear that the Plushtrap Oscar runs away with has both human eyes and teeth. Quote from the book, Raj turned to Oscar. You managed to steal us the only Plushtrap chaser that looks like a half-human hybrid. End quote. Now, this idea of a half-robot, half-human animatronic is a completely new concept for the series. But is it? You see, in FNAF 4, we had ourselves Nightmare, the black, transparent, spooky bear that, if you looked closely enough, had a human brain in its head as a part of its design. A detail that pretty much all of us dismissed. I mean, all of us glossed over Nightmare in general as just like the embodiment of death, the game's Grim Reaper as the crying child slowly flatlines in his hospital bed, or, you know, just a figment of the boy's haunted imagination. But with this context from Fazbear Fright, could Nightmare have actually been a real experiment? Was William Afton in his quest for immortality, or Henry in his quest for more lifelike robots, testing the human brain's ability to survive in and operate an animatronic body?
See that in
this would make Nightmare the
right?
literal Frankenstein's
DLC.
monster for family entertainment dining. And even though I say that jokingly, it's also something that appears in the Curse of Dreadbear DLC for FNAF Help Wanted, where we actively program a brain and insert it into Dreadbear's head before Hand Unit tells us this.
Yeah, exactly.
Well done. It's time to introduce the creature to the kids for focus testing and troubleshooting.
We know, based on the original trilogy of books, that Afton was obsessed with recreating living metal just like those original haunted animatronics. I see Nightmare, Dreadbear, and this Plushtrap all as potential experiments looking to do exactly that. Lastly, we come to story number 2, Lonely Freddy. It's my personal favorite of the bunch. In this one, we have rebellious teen Alec looking to expose his goody two-shoes sister Hazel for the fraud that she really is. Alec, in this story, is actually a really tragic character. He's a teen who acts out because he's ignored by his parents, and the main reason he's trying to bring down his sister is because she is always the one who gets the attention. The two of them inexplicably team up to torment their parents in the lead up to Hazel's birthday party at Freddy Fazbear's, with Alec planning on double-crossing her the day of the party. When the day arrives, Alec's plan backfires. It's revealed that Hazel is truly just that pure and good of a person. It's been Alec who's been the jerk, pushing everyone around him away, thinking himself as the victim when he was actually making himself into the victim. With the parents just trying to cater to his needs and Hazel just wanting a brother who liked her, Alec runs off, ashamed of his actions, and hides in the storage closet. Just as he starts to make a promise to change for the better, he meets with a short little lonely Freddy, a free-roaming 2-foot doll made to entertain kids that are ignored or forgotten about at parties. But things are never quite what they seem in Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. The cute little bear hypnotizes Alec and then body swaps with him, imprisoning Alec's consciousness inside the tiny bear body. Quote from that moment, there, sitting across the table from his sister and his parents, was Alec. It was the same rumpled t-shirt he'd thrown on that morning before the party, the same ripped jeans, the same unruly golden curls, his light green eyes. Hey, Alec said, the voice in his head quiet at first, but quickly it was screaming, hey, that's not me! That's not me! His eyes, his stolen green eyes and his stolen body gleamed at Alec. And then, the fake Alec smiled. As Alec, trapped in the Lonely Freddy, was carried away by a store employee, he saw fake Alec wink at him from the table before returning his attention to a smiling, happy family. Dark, right? And Alec isn't alone. After he's puked on by one of the kids at the party, he's picked up and thrown into the dumpster, where he meets a couple new friends. One final quote. His fall was broken by dozens of plush bears that looked exactly like him. Dozens of discarded Lonely Freddys. Help! Alec thought he heard himself say. Pretty soon, it was every bear in the bin, their thin, muted screams for help swallowed by the metal and darkness that entombed them. Alec and his new friends, dozens of the lonely ones. Ah, what a great closing line
really
for
dark.
that story. It is so heartbreaking to see this misguided kid suddenly learn to love his family, only to have his chance at redemption ripped away by these animatronics. It is so sad as a story. But here's the thing, for as sad as it is, this story carries over yet another recurring theme that we're seeing develop in these books, that animatronics are stealing the identities of kids. In the first book, we had the story To Be Beautiful, where Baby steals the looks and identity of a girl named Eleanor. Here, we have ourselves another robot AI, this one housed inside the Lonely Freddy module, stealing the body of Alec. This, to me, is right in alignment with what we've been expecting from Vanny in the new FNAF game that's slated for release later this year. Remember, in FNAF VR, we hear the story of Jeremy, and how he cuts off his own face in an attempt to reject the system taking control of his brain. And when we beat that game, it ends with Plushtrap basically locking us away away and taking over our body. We let him escape through us. But what we thought was happening on a small scale, one person getting taken over in one game, instead appears to be happening to kids in pizzerias everywhere.
Oh,
It's further evidence supporting this theory that I did on FNAF VR, where the story from this point forward is basically Afton creating an army, a cult, a bunch of brainwashed, or more accurately, body-swapped people hiding in public, hiding in plain sight, taking over bodies one by one. Kinda makes you wonder what FNAF 2020's got up its sleeve, right? But before we look
yeah,
forward,
exactly.
we actually have to look backward. You see, there's one last topic I'd like to explore with this final story, but it's a doozy. It's the parallels that this story has with FNAF 4. In fact, I believe that the Lonely Freddy story is helping us to solve what is one of the longest-standing mysteries in this franchise, and also one of the strangest inclusions that we've never really had a solid answer for to begin with. And that, my friends, is the true story of Psychic Friend Fredbear. He's here, he's there, he's everywhere. Who you gonna call? Psychic Friend Fredbear. But in order to tell you why, I'm gonna need a bit more time. So until then, my friends, there's only one last thing to say. Do you want to save money on pizza? Yeah, that's right. All this Freddy Fazbear talk has gotten me hungry for a nice old slice of pizza. Luckily, restaurants and food delivery are considered to be essential businesses right
The sponsor was literally
losing their jobs right now and two
Pizzeria.
purchases.
I
Money
mean, yeah.
all
makes
without
sense,
you having
I guess. So I think that's it for today.
honey.com/MattPat, MATPAT. Then click number 2, just install. It is that easy. That's joinhoney.com/MattPat and then install. Stop throwing money away today. You need that extra pizza money for more important things, like toilet paper and paper towels, my friends.
I mean,
Stay
yeah.
safe out there, guys, and I'll see you all next week.
It's just a theory, people. So anyway, there was Game Theory, the Grave Robber. Like, my God. That Alec guy, Alec's story was just really heartbreaking, and he tries to be good to his family, but you know what happened. Like the Lonely Freddy apparently swapped body with Alec, and then Alec was trapped in the, in the Lonely Freddy one, and apparently there is a lot of them in the dumpster, I guess, and a lot of victims. So if we actually believe that, I mean, it's obviously implied in the book, like Matt Pat said, that there is a bunch of like Lonely Freddy plus, you know what I mean, and there is a bunch of them who actually asking for help, but obviously no one can hear them because, well, they just a plus, they just a fucking plus. There is no way they can screaming help. So I mean, it's in their mind, of course. So I think it's safe to say there is a bunch of people who actually become the victim of this animatronic already. There is a lot of like body swapping and all that kind of stuff, which again make me really excited for FNAF 2020 because I'm really curious to see what like the future of the story was, because right now we actually stopped becoming like, oh, children haunting the animatronic and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we kind of find out that previously it was just basically a lie, not entirely, but I think most of it was a lie, besides William Afton, because apparently the company decided to hire the game developer, not Scott Cotton, but the game developer, to actually make the FNAF game that we know back in the past, like FNAF 1 to 3 to 4, I think. Even though, yes, some of them is still canon. I'm not saying all of them is just a lie, but there is some like spooky ghost story and all that kind of stuff. I think it's safe to assume it was kind of a lie in a way. Even though in the book it says that there is a dark force that actually lead the children to the pizzeria. I don't know what it is that, and I don't know if Matt Patrick's actually know about that, because I think it was introduced in the first 2 books that he already mentioned in this game theory video, and I think there is a bunch of other books maybe it's gonna be released in the future, who knows. And I'm really curious to see what, how the connection is, like how the story is going to develop in the future, because my God, that was really, really dark and jaw-dropping in a way, because FNAF is really, really heading to the next level now. It's not just a normal like ghost story and all that kind of stuff where, oh, kids got murdered and then trapped inside the animatronics and then haunted the animatronics. But now they're actually body swapping, body swapping with an actual human. So the actual human become, well, if we follow the Lonely Freddy story, like the human became the plus Freddy, I guess, or Lonely Freddy, I guess. But yeah, I think it's safe to assume there is a bunch of people who actually already body swapping with the animatronics, and they just hiding in plain sight. And I think that uh oh, like the bunny mask, I think Vanny, I think that's the name. I probably could be wrong. Wait, let me see if I can find where he mentioned that. I think where, yeah, the, this one right here, like Vanny, I think that's her name. um which I think the character is going to appear in the 2020 game, because we kind of see Vanny, I guess, in the far, like in the far image in the 2020 game. So it makes me really curious about, how the story is going to develop this time. But yeah, it's just really, man, it's really insane right now, and I think it's far more insane than previously. I mean, right now it's more, at some capacity it was scientific, but at some capacity, for the most part, it's also supernatural, because like you body swapping, like that's not scientific at all. I think it was supernatural. It's safe to assume, or maybe scientific. I don't know. You guys decided, but I also think it's kind of a mix of scientific stuff and then a mix with supernatural stuff. Because there is a dark force that actually leading the kids to the pizzeria for some reason. Maybe the I don't know. Maybe the animatronic is trying to swap body with. I mean, obviously they try to swap body with an actual human. So yeah, and apparently William Afton is building an army. My God. But yeah, it's got me really excited, man. Because right now FNAF is not just, oh, a security guard inside of the pizzeria and then just defending himself. But right now he's actually heading to the next level, and this time we actually have like a bunch of other story besides a night guard, or like a bunch of kids exactly trapped in the pizzeria, because we always get that in the past, and it was kind of boring in after a while. So I'm really glad that Scott decided to introduce us to this new story. I mean, it's a book, and yeah, it's just really interesting. I really curious to see where this new lore is actually going, because if Afton building an army, well, God help us. Because like MatPat said, it was hiding in plain sight. Like you don't know which human is actually like is already controlled by the animatronics. Like you don't know any of that. Because obviously you can see that. Because they're hiding in plain sight once again. So I'm really curious to see how all of this is gonna solve in the end, because I think we're gonna have a long ride in the future. But and maybe the FNAF 2020 game is gonna introduce us to a lot of wild stuff, wild and new stuff, which makes me really exciting. I don't know exactly the release date of the 2020 game, but some people say it might be released in July, August. I don't know, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, this theory is just, man, really exciting. And of course, the haters like, guys, this is just a theory. Like, MatPat didn't actually confirm himself that, oh, I am right. Like, no, if he actually wrong, he admitted. Like, that's the way it is. I think previously in the FNAF 4 theory, I think, like he made a theory and it was wrong, like debunked by the fans. Like, oh no, MatPat, this is wrong because I think Scott said this or something else. I think it was an old video and MatPat apologized. Like, hey, this is wrong. I'm sorry. So I don't think you should wrote that hate comment, to be honest, because MatPat done a lot of work to make a single theory video. And again, making a theory video is not easy, especially you make a theory about Five Nights at Freddy. Like, you know how complicated that stuff was. So please stop that. Just respect MatPat, because again, MatPat never said that his theory is true. Like, I mean, some people say, oh, it was a fact. Like, I trust MatPat theory, but I never said that, oh, it was a fact. Some of it was a fact, like it's true, based on the story. But I think some of them, like maybe Plushtrap was like a prototype of the Fun Time animatronics, like because he got the sound in his chest. Like, again, that's a theory. He never actually confirmed that, oh, this is actually true, or the timeline is actually true at all. Like, he doesn't. He just explained it that maybe this is happening. This is what I have in my mind, and this is my theory. Again, it's called game theory. It's obvious already. So please stop the hate, because MatPat has done a lot of work on this video, obviously. And again, searching the connection and reading through a bunch of storyline, it's not easy. It took some dedication to actually make this video. And I really respect MatPat. That's why I really respect him. Um, and I think he's the biggest channel who actually have like this FNAF theory and all. And I know some people who actually take his theory as a fact, but I don't think you should do that, to be honest, because again, it's just a theory. Apparently there's a reference to that in the book. Maybe it's a reference to MatPat, or maybe it's just happened that way. I don't know. MatPat doesn't even know, but I think it's a reference to MatPat, to game theory. Like, it's just a theory. And yeah, like he said, it's just a theory, so don't take it too seriously. I mean, there is some he like there is some part that it was actually true because again, it was part of the story. But something regarding the timeline, the Plushtrap being a prototype to the Funtime animatronics, and all that kind of stuff, like Nightmare being also being an experiment by William Afton, like it's just a theory. I know this is a theory. I mean, I like to believe it, but then again, we'll have to see until the future books or games actually coming out, so we can finally find out more about this new storyline. Because my God, it's so fascinating to see how it shifts from a normal ghost story to like a scientific or supernatural stuff. I mean, it was supernatural in the beginning, but in this one, it's like a next level. Like like animatronic is body swapping with humans. Like that's messed up. I don't know about you guys, but that's really messed up to me. um, but yeah, and after building an army, like my God, I really can't wait to see how all of this is gonna solve in the end, or maybe it's just gonna get complicated in the end. I don't know. It was already complicated in the first place anyway, so I'm assuming it's gonna get more and more complicated in the future. But yeah, once again, guys, make sure you guys check. If you guys want to watch the original video, I will leave a link in the description below, and make sure you guys check my past channel, game theories and film theories. Um, Subscribe to him, show him some support. Again, guys, please don't hate him. He's just doing a theory. He's just doing a continuity and all that kind of stuff. I mean, sure, there is some mistakes. Like, of course, you're talking about theory. He never actually said this is true. And of course, at some point, he's gonna make a mistake. And MatPat, he realized that. He apologized if he does a mistake. He doesn't like keeping to himself like, oh, I am correct. Like you have to accept my theory. Like he never said that. He never said that in the first place. So, make sure guys to just please respect MatPat, because making this video, it took a lot of dedication. Like you can tell, reading a books and connecting to a lot of FNAF theory in the past, in the future, in the future game, obviously. Like that took some dedication. That's why I really respect MatPat here. So please, guys, don't hate him. Please, just respect his work at least, and subscribe to his channel. Show him some support once again. And if you guys enjoy my reaction video, please leave a like, comment, maybe subscribe to this channel, maybe share this video with your friends or family. And yeah, once again, I want to say thank you for everybody who've been subscribing to this channel. I really appreciate it, guys. And yeah, I think that's about it for today's video. And again, the FNAF story, man, it's getting really insane, really insane, and I'm really excited for more in the future. But that's it for today's video, guys, and I will see you guys in the next one then. Bye.